Hello, welcome to Expo North and to our webinar, Preparing for Funding. I'm Joan Johnson. I'm the Fashion, Craft and Textiles Advisor for Expo North. So for those of you that are new to Expo North, we support creative communities in the Highlands and Islands and Murray region. And today I'm delighted to have our panelists with us to discuss how we prepare for funding. So obviously raising additional investment while growing the business is an essential part of being an entrepreneur, but from a startup to those trading, to those seeking outside investment, whether you're looking for funding from a commercial partner, a bank or a local authority, having a well thought out business plan can make all the difference. So the team we brought here today will share their experiences, and we are particularly interested to hear from Stephen Hamill of Scottish Edge, who've seen lots of people apply for funding over the years that they have been offering Scottish Edge funding. So to start with, I'll just introduce who our panel is. So we've got Stephen Hamill, CEO of Scottish Edge. We have Alistair Murray of Atlantic Consulting, who has supported many businesses through funding applications. Hannah Taylor of Gut Feelings Kombucha, who's a recent Young Edge winner. And we have Scott Weir, founder and CEO of Pillow Partners. So I would like to start by asking each of them to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about their business, and we'll go from there. Stephen, would you like to start?
Thanks for that, Joan. And first of all, just to say a massive thank you for inviting me along today. It's great to be here and have the opportunity to share a bit of background about Scottish Edge. So, as Joan said, I'm Stephen Hamill. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Scottish Edge. We deliver a business competition that is aimed at identifying the early stage entrepreneurial talent we have here in Scotland. We've been going now for the past 8 years. We've given out just almost £18 million to support businesses as they look to grow. And it's just great to have the opportunity to share a wee bit more about what we do. So looking forward to giving you more insight later on. So thank you.
Thank you. And Ali Murray?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Ali. I run a company called Atlantic Consulting, which basically does marketing or strategy consulting. But I've been setting up and running and investing businesses probably since the mid-90s. I have two current energy businesses I'm part of, which are going through different stages of funding as we speak. And I think probably for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been working alongside Stephen at Scottish Edge, particularly helping Highlands and Islands-based businesses get ready with their applications and then getting them pitch ready to try and get some money.
Thank you, Ali. And Hannah?
Hi. I own Gut Feelings Kombucha in Murray area in the northeast. I make kombucha, which is a fermented tea, and I sell it through refill stations and through small bottles where I experiment with different flavors. I've been trading for just over 2.5 years now, and as Joan mentioned, I've just gone through the process of Scottish Edge, so it's a pleasure to be able to be here talking a little bit about that, about the funding side of business, because I think it is really important for small businesses like mine to, have a good picture of that side of things, because personally, yeah, I didn't know a huge amount of it about it when I came into business. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Hannah. And finally, Scott.
Hello everyone, thank you for the invite, Joan. Great to be here. So my name's Scott Weir. I'm the founder and CEO of Pillow Partners. We are a vacation rental holiday home management company with social impact, helping communities. So unlike Hannah, I wasn't a Young Edge winner, I was just an Edge winner. Hard to believe. I know we're based in Scotland, based in the West Coast. We've got properties all over the UK and recently expanded into Florida this month and the EU. So done quite a bit during lockdown regards getting funding. We'll chat about that later, preparing for funding, and feel free to ask any questions as we go through. So thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Hannah, just going back to you before we move on to Stephen, could you give us a little bit of an idea of where you were on your funding journey? Are you self-funded? How did you raise funding to set up your business?
So I started off, I've been self-funded pretty much the whole time, apart from applying for Scottish Edge at the beginning of this year. My process really at the beginning was I just started selling to friends and family before my business was actually certified. So I had like a little pocket of money sitting there ready to start my business once it was actually able to be certified. And throughout the first 2 years, it was just all about going to markets and, you know, really trying to sell my product to people going into places and selling through shops, cafes, that kind of thing, and just growing really slowly. I've definitely tried a few different avenues of getting funding in the last 2 years, and unfortunately just been met with lots of dead ends, which hasn't been great, but in a way it's meant that my business has grown really slowly and at a pace that's actually really manageable for myself. And then at the beginning of this year decided to go for it with the Young Edge application, and thankfully it worked out really great for me. The process was definitely difficult, more difficult than I thought it was going to be, but the things that I learned about my business in the process are, you know, you come away with such a clear picture of your business by the end of it, and I think even that in itself is absolutely invaluable. So
great, thank you. And I think that's the thing about Scottish Edge. Although we're talking about Scottish Edge today, it's actually about the process of applying, of working out all the aspects of your elevator pitch. What makes your product or service unique? Why would somebody want to use it? All of those things. It's a bit like a Dragon's Den pitch. I've been there myself. I think I'm on my 6th application, and I know I've been, you know, for others who've either been through it or going through it, it's one of those things. Sometimes you get so far, sometimes you make it, sometimes you don't, but it's the process that will help. So I'm now going to hand over to Stephen, who will talk us through the process of Scottish Edge, and then we'll come back and we'll take questions towards the end. So if any of our audience want to ask anything, please put any questions in the chat box, and we'll field those towards the end. Thank you. Over to Stephen.
Thanks, Joan. And I've got a few slides that I'm going to run through, if that's okay. I'll put them on screen just now. And as Joan said, if there's any questions as we go along, please feel free to ask, and we'll either pick them up as we go along, or we can pick them up at the end and answer those questions. So, as we said in the introduction, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Scottish Edge, and ultimately what we do is we deliver a competition that is about ultimately delivering impact for Scotland. And how we do that is through trying to get some funding into the early stage businesses who are the sort of future employers, who are the future bigger businesses in Scotland who are going to sort of deliver that economic impact as we grow. So it's about finding businesses at that very early stage and finding the businesses that have got potential. And what we'll take you through is how the process works, how the sort of application process works, how you do your 3-minute presentation. But a lot of the things that are applicable to Scottish Edge, as Joan mentioned there, are about applicable to other funding avenues, and it's about learning as well. It's a learning experience, as Hannah touched on. So this isn't just about going through and being specific at Edge, it's about just making sure you find out your business and what people look for when they're making a decision on whether to offer you funding or not. So who's, for Scottish Edge in particular, if we focus on that just now, who can apply? So that's about any Scottish-based early stage business. So as long as you are based in Scotland, looking to grow in Scotland, you are an early stage business. And what we mean by that, you are a business set up that's either pre-trading at the moment or have got less than 5 years of trading behind you, and you must be headquartered here. So that's the key things that you're looking for in terms of being eligible. In terms of the competition itself, we deliver it twice a year. So it's a 6-monthly cycle, and we normally have around about a prize pot of about 1 million or 1 million to £1.5 million per round that we give out to businesses. It's split across various different categories, and that is something we have learned from delivering this competition over the past 8 years or so, that there's different businesses, different stages, and we've tried to develop elements and pathways within the competition that suits various types of needs. We've got our main Scottish Edge competition, which is seen as our sort of core element of it. It's one where we can give individual business prizes up to £100,000. So, and within that, we've also got some specialist categories that we've partnered up with various different organisations to offer specialist sector awards within the competition. So we've got a circular economy award just to focus on the sort of environmental aspects of it. We've added in a net zero award into the current round that we've got going within Scottish Edge, because these areas are so important in our sort of current sort of environment. We've got an Stv Award, so we partner with Stv around giving a specific award, and that adds an extra element around giving a sort of special prize around getting your product on TV in terms of an advert. But in addition to these specialist awards, which sort of suit a few businesses, we've also got main Scottish Edge awards, which is the bulk of our awards going through, and that's for businesses of any sector, and as long as they've got that less than 5 years trading. So the process you go through is you would submit an application form, which is quite a detailed form. I think as Hannah was alluding to, it does ask quite a lot of detail about your business and gets you to think about it, not just about, as an early stage business, how you're going to get through the next month or 2 months. It's about what can you actually achieve as a business, and that's what we're looking to get from your sort of business presentation. What ambitions have you got? How are you going to get there? And what evidence can you give us to show us that you can actually deliver on this? So you put a lot of information on an application form, and you then combine that with a video presentation. You've got 3 minutes to deliver a sort of business story. And again, we'll give you some information of how you can do that and the best way you can get that across. And once you've submitted them into the Scottish Edge panel, we get external judges come in and do assessments on that. And there's some specific things that we're looking for in the judging process, which are pertinent to Scottish Edge, but also to other funding avenues. And again, we'll go into a little bit more detail around them soon. So that's our sort of initial assessment process. And then once you get through to that, you would be invited to a sort of pitching day where you would, like Dragon's Den, as Joan touched on, where you come and do a pitch to a panel for 3 minutes, and then they follow up with some questions. And again, we're trying to find out which businesses have got the most high growth potential from that, which ones can deliver on impact if an award goes in. And then if you're successful, you get invited to a Scottish Edge final, which is now seen as one of the biggest events in the Scottish business calendar. And you, hopefully in this round, we're hopefully going back to you in person, following some sort of Zoom rounds that we've delivered in the past year and a bit. So you would come to a sort of venue, you'll stand on stage in front of a high profile panel, and you would pitch, again, trying to win funding for your business. So that's the process and how it works. In addition to that, we've got other categories, as I touched on. We've got Young Edge, which Hannah is one of our winners, which is identifying our younger entrepreneurs coming through the process. And then you've got our Wildcard Edge category as well, which is designed purely for earlier stage innovations, where it's more of a concept rather than a sort of business. So it's about just giving some early stage funding to say, can you take this business a little step further forward to get you closer to being market ready or having a prototype or anything like that. So there's some learnings there. It suits businesses of all different stages. So on your application form, when you go in through our online portal, you'll ask some different categories of questions. Then you go in. So it's all an online process. It's quite a slick process to go through, but as we've touched on before, it's not easy. We typically get around 250 to 300 applications each round, and we deliver this twice a year. So we're really looking for the top businesses in this competition, and it's quite a thorough assessment process you go through. So it's quite robust, it's quite competitive and it's bearing in mind it is a competition, so you are being assessed against other businesses. So it's about making sure that you really stand out and get a better proposal across than some other businesses that might come in from your sector. So it's about just making sure you put a really good case across and get the assessors excited. But there's 6 key areas we look at, and we've got questions that are within our application portal aligned to all of these, and these align with our assessment criteria that we'll touch on, which is probably the key part that is the key learnings come from when you're looking at the sort of funding proposal you're putting forward. It's about what do people look for from you when they're assessing your business. So this is technically the questions that you're asked in an easy to read format. So it is a bit more detailed on the application. We go into more depth and look for a bit more detail. But effectively, we're looking for some key information around, you put a specific funding amount in there. We ask you in terms of value proposition, which is basically what is your business? Do you understand the market that you're operating in? And where is your point of difference? So most businesses that apply to Scottish Edge will have other like-minded businesses. And that's just a normal aspect of starting up a business. There will be other competitors out there. We just want to get a sense of what is your differentiator that will help you stand out in the market. Then we ask about entrepreneurial spirit, which is about the people. It's about having a really good team, and it's also thinking beyond just yourself as a business leader. It's about who else is supporting you in that business journey. Who else is your network around you? Who's your sounding board for advice and support? Who can help you open those market opportunities when you've got a really good product? So it's about thinking about that wider network. Then importantly, we've added in an impact section now. This has become a core aspect of what Scottish Edge is looking for now from the businesses. It's about, are you a purpose-led business? What is the good that you deliver, whether that's for people in terms of a social impact or for the environment and sort of planet. So it's about just thinking more than just about business as usual in terms of funding growth and sales and how you can make profit. What more can you do beyond that? So that's quite an important part to think now. And a lot of funding decisions are based on that aspect now. We're also looking about your business growth opportunities. So it's about what can you deliver as a business? What's your ambitions? And more importantly, how are you going to deliver on it? So we see lots of applications that have got huge ambitions for the business, but more importantly for us as an assessing organisation in terms of sort of checking how a business will grow. It's about how do you deliver on that is the important part. What evidence have you got? What sort of validation have you got that you can demonstrate there is a potential there for growth? Then we look at who's your customers. Not just what we don't want to hear is the sector you operate in and some stats from that sector in terms of checking on Google to say this sector's growing by X% over the last year. That's great. But what we want to know is who are you engaging with? How are you as a business building demand from the target market? Who are you speaking to? Have you done forums? Have you done surveys? Are you getting some really good customer insights for your actual business proposition? So that's really important. And then another key part of it is if you want funding from whether it's Scottish Edge or investment or whatever source of funding you're looking for, there needs to be a real valid reason for that funding and a real valid ask for it. And you need to be able to demonstrate it's going to make a difference and it's going to generate impact. So if you put funding in from any source, you need to be able to demonstrate that this funding is going to be really valuable and it's going to allow us to achieve this, this, or this. So that's some key aspects that we look for in the competition in terms of some of the questions that we would want you to think about and ask and answer. In addition to that, so you've got all that in terms of a written form and that's part of your Edge application and that will make up your business plan that will go to investors. But in addition to that, we ask for a video presentation because we want to hear from you as a business leader. We want to hear about your passion and your desire to build this business and take it forward. So we give that through an opportunity of a 3-minute video. And there's just a structure here that you can look at just to give you an opportunity to tell your business story in a sort of simplified sort of format. So it's about just getting across your hook when you're talking to people and telling your business story. It's about how do you get them excited? How do you get them interested in wanting to hear more? What's your story about why you started this business? What was your inspiration behind it? What was the problem you've seen and how have you got then the solution to fix that? What's the customer opportunities? How are you finding that out? And then who else is in the market? And that market awareness part is really important. And it's not about saying we're in a market that's got lots of people or lots of other business offerings. It's about we know where we are operating, we know how we will stand out. So it's about just that awareness piece. And then, as we touched on earlier about the team, who's got those skill sets, how have you got the right mix of skills to really take your business forward. So, and then what have you achieved to date? That's a really interesting and crucial part. We want to know from you, when you started your business, what have you done so far? What have you delivered on? And then, as you say, we've got the impact part of it, which is a really important part. How can you deliver sort of really strong impact measurements from your business? And then the funding that you're looking for, what will you do that for? What will that allow you to achieve? And how will that help the growth aspect of the business? So that's about an element of how can you tell a business story in a short period, whether it's a 10-minute pitch to investors, a 40-minute pitch to investors, a 3-minute. You can use that format to help you, whatever sort of type of presentation, and you would just go into more depth the longer you've got. We've touched on some of these in terms of how you would put your application together, but these are the things that we then put in front of an assessment panel. These are the things that they will measure each application on and to then determine which ones really stand out, that demonstrate that impact that we're looking for and that growth potential. So we ask them to measure each business against these 6 key areas. So has a business clearly articulated what they do? And that's an important thing. It seems really simple. And for a business leader, you'll know your business better than anyone. But how can you make sure you get that in a simplified form across to a sort of panel of people? And then just how you perceive yourself in the market, where you see what sector, how you'll sort of sit in the market, how you'll reach your customers. So it's about that just general business of offering. And then we've got the people part of it, which we touched on, and then the impact part. So these are the key things that you'll be asked questions on, but these are the key things that the judges will then measure you on. So it's about making sure you spend the time and really focusing on the key areas that are important to this. These are the ones that are important to us at Scottish Edge, but they're also relevant to a lot of other funding sort of channels that you maybe look at as well. Just some tips from me from seeing, I think, over the 8 years of Scottish Edge, I think we've seen just over 4,000 applications come in from early stage businesses. We've seen application forms and video presentations and do some things that really stand out. As top tips is just make it easy for people to understand what you do as a business. That's just, as I say, it sounds simple, but it's really, really important. The worst thing you can do in an application, or for me in terms of Scottish Edge anyway, is the judges at the end of reading your application and seeing a video is they still go, I don't get it. I don't know what the business is, or I can't really understand it. So that you just make it really simple. Know what you're being assessed against. So if it's for Scottish Edge, know their criteria. If it's for investors, ask them what are they looking for. What is the key thing that they want to know in terms of your business? Know your market and obviously know your point of difference. Have that aspect that makes you stand out. And that can be simple, but it can still be a real unique aspect. Be realistic in terms of financial forecasting. You'll be really challenged on these as you go through a funding application, whether it's investors or Scottish Edge. You'll be really challenged on these parts of it. So make sure you know your figures, make sure you know your commercial plan going forward or your go-to-market strategy. So just make sure you're thinking about how you're going to take your business forward in a sort of short-term and also a longer-term aspect. Talk about your customers, know what you'll spend the money on, and keep that really simple about what the impact of that will be going forward. Think about your impact intention. So that what good are you doing? And that, again, could that be for socially? I know Scott might touch on some of the things that he's doing really, really well in this area. Don't leave lots of unanswered questions. Again, if you're doing a written form, just double check it. For us at Scottish Edge, it's not an exam, it's not a spelling test, it's not that. It's about just being professional, making sure what you put through is professional and making sure that it's a good articulation of your business. It represents you as a business leader and as a business. And then in terms of the video, just get that passion across. Come across as though what this means to you is really important. It's something that you're really enthusiastic about and you can see real potential and you really want to make this a success. And then again, just showcasing if you've got a video and you've got a product, you've got a sort of a platform or something that you can showcase, use that opportunity on a video, or if you're doing a live pitch, make sure you bring that product or that aspect to life for the people who are reviewing that. So that's a quick overview of Scottish Edge and what we look for, what our judges look for, and hopefully that's given you some insight, and hopefully there's some questions that will come through from, and I'm happy to answer them. But happy to hand back to Joan if there's any questions, or if you want to get some more insight from Scott or Hannah or Ali on how they do it.
Thank you, Stephen. That's great. If you want to come out of there, that's great. We're back on screen. Really good, because I think what's very clear about this is the amount of preparation that's needed, and you can't underestimate that. But this is relevant to seeking funding from any source, because the questions that the judges are looking to answer are likely to be asked by any investor, whether it's an organisation or an independent or a bank. They'll want to see the full story. So that's a really useful overview. Ali, maybe can I go to you as somebody who's supported particularly Highlands and Islands businesses through the process of Scottish Edge, and can you give your overview of what those key things are as well in terms of preparing for application for funding?
Yeah, I mean, I hope everyone can hear me okay. I would endorse immediately actually a point you've just made. It takes an awful lot of time and effort. I mean, if we go back to the basics, any funder, be it a competition like the Edge, to a big institutional investor, has always other things they can do. So you're not the only game in town, and everything's competitive, and it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of time. I would also say that it always starts with one thing: customer, full stop. That's it. So if you don't understand what your customers want and you can't build something around them, you're heading off in the wrong direction. But I think in terms of both Edge and other types of funding, there's three barriers that lots of businesses, especially at the startup stage, come across. And like Hannah said, it's a learning experience. So I would say, to endorse something Stevie also said as well, is that a lot of this is failing and falling off your bike a lot of times, because every time you fail, if you can learn from it and you pick it up, I would treat that as a badge of honor, because if you can get back up and learn and learn and learn again, then at some point you're going to get the funding you need. The three barriers I think are this. First of all, it's actually knowing what your best business strategy is. Do you really understand your market and your competitors? And is it the strategy you're putting in place going to be the right one that's going to deliver for you? So if you can't segment or position or differentiate yourself in the landscape, it's time to sit back and think and analyze and talk to other people and try and get some insights from them. Once you're going to go for it, I would say the biggest barrier I've seen from startups all the way through to companies trying to raise millions is actually being able to articulate properly, as Steve said, your strategy directly to the business investor that you're actually dealing with. So for Edge, read the questions that they're directly asking for you. Don't go off track. So it's not just a case of saying what you're doing, why you're doing it, when you're doing it, what if, who's helping you. You need good solid financials, you need good cash flows, you need scenario planning, and you also need to show, I would say, for any business, even at an early stage, that you're setting up good internal controls, because if somebody's going to give you money, they want to see that you're going to manage it properly. So you need coherent documentation, but again, as Steve said, totally wrapped up in a really compelling narrative of storylines. You've got to get people excited. And then perhaps the third barrier, I think, is probably the most difficult actually for most people. Even if you're a sophisticated business, it's actually finding out who the best investor for you is. Where do they actually live? What do they actually want? A lot of them tend to be quite secretive, and you've got to get to know them. I mean, some investors go on numbers. Others have gut feels. They're just people like all of us here. But I mean, whether it's a government for product development or the Edge competition for young innovative companies in Scotland, you've got to match yourself to the investor that's going to work for you. And that takes an awful lot of work and homework, apart from writing a business plan. I'll probably stop there, but yeah, just ask me anything else if that's useful.
Thank you, Ali. That's great. Could I move on to Scott now? Now, Scott, you've been on quite a journey, both with growing your business and obviously more recently looking for investors. Could you give a bit of an overview of that journey and how you've approached it?
Yeah, so we started off like Hannah, just I think I call it bootstrapping, and we're in a nice position now where we've got positive cash flow. We've never needed money. They call it runway. So some businesses, if they need big capital investment or have lots of staff to start off, maybe have 3, 4, 6 months money in the bank and they need to raise investment periodically. We've been okay with bootstrap. We've made profit every month, even during lockdown. So we started this process. We were lucky enough to win pitching competitions, to go to Silicon Valley. We got to speak to all the big VCs and do things over there and start that process off face to face. Then obviously lockdown hit. We had some things happening over there. Lockdown hit, and we went from literally being in Silicon Valley, posting pictures at Facebook, on Facebook, to coming and our industry being closed down. So we had a little break. During lockdown, we spent a lot of time, probably pitched to 50 different investors. These can be private family firms, big VCs, venture capitalist companies. We did lots of conferences, and we went through Scottish Edge. And to echo what you guys said, we got to the final the first time. We got lots of feedback, perfected that. We got to the final and didn't win. We then took that feedback and come back the next year, and were lucky enough to win. So I think Scotland itself is an amazing ecosystem for the support and the knowledge. Some people may seek investment from, let's say, the US for various reasons. So we went through the process a lot to the due diligence stage. So happy to answer any questions on that. There are some things that are standard for pretty much everything. We can get funding from loans, from equity, from winning prizes, from going on accelerator programs, from giving equity away. So there's a few things, Joan, if you wanted me to share, that pretty much fundamental to any lending, probably whether that's bank lending or investors, if you wanted me to just cover a few points there.
Yeah, I think what's really great to hear is that obviously, as Ali says, there is a point. There's different stages where you're going to fail at things, and you think, and as a startup and trading, that's very hard to take. But that's the reality of the situation. The door is not open everywhere. There's lots of people banging on the doors. There's lots of challenges along the way. And how have you dealt with that sort of feeling of potential rejection along the way? How do you keep going with this?
Well, I had again, Joan, was it 6 times? Well, I know you're resilient and you face challenges up there that maybe we wouldn't have in the Central Belt or elsewhere. But I take the American approach to this. In Scotland, in the UK, if someone's failed, then people would gossip and say, well, you were doing something wrong and they deserve to fail. And it's seen as a negative. If you're in the communities and you've had a failed business and you're a failed startup, then that's seen as a negative thing. But it's the opposite in America. If you go to raise funds and you haven't failed, you're probably in some instances less likely to get that money. And the big deca millionaires and billionaires I've spoken to have said, well, if you're a first-time startup that hasn't had a failed business, you're probably less mature as an entrepreneur, and go and fail a business, make mistakes, get some rejections, and then come back, and we're more likely to invest. So I like that approach in America. They see failure as a good thing. They see it as an entrepreneurial journey, and they see that as crafting a strong, resilient entrepreneur.
Excellent.
Versus being a negative.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, we all learn from that. And as entrepreneurs, you've got to keep seeing the focus of where you want to go with this, and just learn from what happens and move on. Hannah, could I come back to you maybe and ask, in terms of the process, how did you find that as a startup? How you touched on that at the beginning. How did you find the process of applying for Scott's Edge?
I was definitely a bit overwhelmed at first by the amount of information, but just took it as a challenge, to really get into all the in-depth parts of the business. I mean, I have to say that Ali, who's on the call, helped me so much. He lended so much support. So I think that if you have the ability to link up with somebody who can provide some form of support, I definitely would as a young business, because I know it helped me a lot just to find the confidence. I think is one of the biggest things as a young business. But yeah, as challenging as it was, I really have come away with way more confidence, way more belief in my business. And I really, you know, if anybody was to come and challenge me on any part of my business now, I would be able to answer without even thought, because the form goes into so much detail that, yeah, you have to know every single inch of your business, because you don't know what questions the judges are going to ask you at any point. And yeah, I really do think that that in itself has changed things completely for me in terms of confidence.
Great, thank you very much. And Ali, going back to you, what sort of recommendations would you give to anyone currently sitting maybe with an idea that wants to apply for funding, and it may not be Scottish Edge, it may be other areas? What would you say to them at this point?
Well, actually, first I would say have a look at Scottish Edge and what Steve and Evelyn and the team down there are doing, because both Hannah and Scott have endorsed the process itself and the way they've set themselves up. I agree with Scott that the Scottish, let's call it the entrepreneurial ecosystem, is probably a lot better than in many other countries, but proud in the middle and the centre, I think, is sitting the Scottish Edge. And if you go in to try and win, great, but go in and try and improve yourself and your business strategy, because there's people around Steve that will sit and help you, and you can't keep asking for as much help as you get. But I would say maybe three fundamental things is Hannah kind of said, and as Scott's clearly doing right now, you get out of this as much as you put in, okay? So be prepared for hard work, hard time. Get your wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, best friend, whatever involved, because that support group around you are extremely important, because this is not an easy thing to do. I think you've also got to understand that whether you like it or not, you're going to have to kiss an awful lot of frogs to wake the prince or the princess, because that's simply the name of the game in funding and investments. And you just got to keep rolling that ball up the hill, understanding that at some point it's going to roll all the way back down and you got to start again, but you've just got to do it, because the end result is so great that you'll never want to do anything else for as long as you live. But my final point really is this, I think, in that Stevie's got a criteria in the Scottish Edge, which I think is really, really important, and it's the team around you. You cannot run, set up, and scale up a business on your own. It's people that do that. So it's really, really important to make sure that the people around you are actually the right people. I mean, I've made lots of mistakes in the past. I've made money, I've lost money. But one of the biggest things I've learned is that if someone is with you that's not the right person and they're not doing the right job, you have to diplomatically stop working with them and find the right people around you to move your business on. I'll stop there, shall I?
Thank you, Ali. And Scott, could I go back to you in terms of how you find, you've obviously gone out looking for outside investment. How did you go about that process of finding investors?
Well, there is a lot of investors there. For me, lockdown, people watch Netflix. I spoke to people in the US. I didn't do binges of watching box sets. I spent the time in this office to people in Silicon Valley all over the world. Once you start looking, it's like when you've got a car and you then see the car everywhere that you've never seen before. There is funding opportunities absolutely everywhere, to the degree that there's all over the world. That there's probably more than you'll ever have the time to start pitching and dealing. So just the one thing is, I would say, being proactive and speaking to people. Once you start that process, and as Hannah says, you have your information, you know your numbers, you have that stuff there that you can easily give out, then it becomes a tipping point where it becomes, reactivate people coming to you as well. So you need to be proactive and get on people's radars and start letting people know you're fundraising. But after a point, people will see it pitching at Scottish Edge. So I'm sure Hannah's the same. Investors will watch these award ceremonies and these pitching competitions and online expos. So being on even an electronic stage actually becomes good, because people start contacting you. You can register on various platforms online. So if anybody wants that, I'll share them later. But there are places where investors look proactively for you. And Remember, if you want to apply for Scottish Edge, they're not looking to get businesses to apply. You need to proactively apply to them. But some investors have funds to fill. They've got deadlines. They're actively looking to, let's say they've got $1 billion to invest. They're looking for businesses. So if you let people know and you're in the right place at the right time, these investors may come to you.
Excellent, thank you. And Stephen, just going back onto Scottish Edge, can you give us an update on where the next stage of where you're at the minute? Because you say it's on twice a year.
Yeah, so I'll do that. And there's a couple other things just to add on from some of the guys have said, Joan, if that's okay. So just in terms of the competition, as you said, we run it twice a year. We're currently coming towards the end of a round. So, and then we will be launching probably again mid-December for a soft launch, but officially that will launch January. So we'll open the application window mid-December. We'll do our comms in January. So the next round will run January to May, June time next year. So keep an eye on the Scottish Edge website. You'll be able to go and access an application there from sort of mid-December onwards. You'll have up to early February to get that application completed and entered into the competition. And then hopefully you can go in and win some funding for you to take your business forward. So, but just on a couple of things the guys had mentioned. So I think Scott mentioned about the failure thing. And again, for us, that's a really important aspect of it. It's not about failure. This is about just being resilient. It's about taking, it's not a no from Scottish Edge from us. It's a not yet. And I think, Joan, you mentioned you've went through the process quite a few times. We had a business in the last round who won on, I think it was a 7th or 8th application attempt. And this isn't about people feel they now should win because they've done it so many. It's not about that. It's about timing. This is about when can you really demonstrate that this fund is going to be really impactful for your business. That is, you've now got all your ducks in a row with the business. You've really got the business plan right. You might have went through a sort of route that's maybe not been right for you. And as Ali said, it's about finding the right channels to market. And you've now got that. You can demonstrate. So it's about just making sure timing is really important for these things. The other thing as well, it's about, I think Scott touched on it, it's that support network. Going through these sort of programs, it's like you can get yourself some exposure. It's about opening up awareness of your business and your product or your proposal to a wider audience. So letting people know about it. But what sort of works quite well through Scottish Edge and probably other offerings like that is we put your application in front of a number of assessors who don't know your business, and you're getting some fresh eyes on this. So it's giving you some feedback, some things that you can take away and learn from, some things that you might not have considered before that you might go, do you know what, that's really good. I'm good to think of that. But also it can give you really good connections. We've often made connections with people on assessment panels who want to link in with businesses that they think, yeah, you should speak to this person or that organisation. So it's about it's a really worthwhile process, even if you don't get the funding. It's about just getting in and hopefully getting some support and learnings from it and building up that network. So there's lots of benefits to doing these things. And as Hannah said, it also opens your eyes up to your business in a wider scale in terms of what's your actual ultimate goals for this? How can you make this happen? And how do you know everything about your business? Because it ultimately falls on you to know the ins and outs. It's up to you to drive this forward and get those good people around you to help you with the things. So it's about just really harnessing all that information to really get a really solid business plan, and that'll stand you in good stead for anything that you're doing, whether it's speaking to a bank, an investor, a customer, or a competition. Just really knowing your business and the fundamentals of it is so important.
Great. Thank you very much. Just like to ask the audience if you've got any questions, if you want to put them in the chat box, we can take those now. And also, really to reflect on this, at Expo North, we have a sector support programme in place. So although we don't have access to funding, the programme can connect you with an advisor who can then potentially advise on areas where there may be funding, but certainly sign up to the newsletter and to the and access the website, because we post a lot about competitions and funding opportunities on there on a regular basis. So keep in touch there. There's no questions coming through. Is there anything else that any of the panelists would like to add at this point?
John, I'll mention about the Scottish Edge. There's no negatives to applying for Scottish Edge. Even the negative of being told not yet. As Hannah mentioned, if you don't do that process, you may not know your numbers. What's your lifetime customer value? What's your customer acquisition cost? There's all these things that as entrepreneurs, we make assumptions about our business. We don't validate our market, and these assumptions will be challenged. So there are no negatives to applying for things like Scottish Edge, because we've been a judge behind the scenes, and Stephen will be very modest about just how much the team care behind the scenes. Even the judges coming in, if you don't you're going to get some valid feedback about your business. You're going to be left with questions that you need to go and answer and perfect your business plan and come back the next time. So the worst case scenario is that you get a team of experts looking at your business and giving you feedback on it. And if you've got a business, you could be paying £10,000 for a consultant to come in and pay to analyse that to find the same things. But the team at Edge are going to be giving you some feedback, and obviously the positives are exposure, network, support, and perhaps funding at the end. So the only thing that would stop you doing that is a little bit of fear of failure or rejection, but that is balanced with the positives of all that feedback, help, support, mentorship, etc.
Yes, Scott, thank you. That's a really good point. And I think, often being asked questions that you've not necessarily thought about. I witnessed somebody on the stage being asked what's their cost of customer acquisition, and they didn't have the answer at hand. They thought, well, it's the cost of marketing or whatever. So it's things like that that can make a difference. That okay, you'll know that the next time, you'll be potentially more prepared. You can never predict what questions you're going to be asked. That's the hard thing. But that is in many ways the challenges that you face when you apply for funding. Often when it's in written form, and there's obviously if you're going to local authorities or for specific grant funding, the criteria is listed there. So really think about that as you're applying. So certainly it is about preparation. There's a lot of preparation, but the more informed you are on your own business, the more you can articulate that, and particularly around the USP. What makes you different? Why should anyone buy from you as opposed to another person who's offering a similar service? So I'd like to thank all our panelists today. I think that's been really useful, and as I say, this will be on our website and can be accessed at any point. So I'd just like to say again, thanks very much to Stephen, to Hannah, to Ali, to Scott, and yeah, all the best for future investment for all of you as well. And we look forward to hearing more about Scottish Edge as well. Thank you,
everyone. Cheers, John.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.